Hey guys, it's Hollywood Studios here, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how to make the most out of your day at an amusement park. And I do want to preface that this video is definitely going to be very general. I'm going to be doing more so of an overview look at all parks and what the general rules of thumbs are when you're going to a park. Many people kind of go in blind, which, if you ask me, is not a good idea at all, especially if you're planning on going on a day that is notoriously crowded like a weekend. And it's good to go in knowing a few things and just being prepared. And that's what this video aims to do. If this video is successful and you guys would like to see more, I'm definitely open to doing park specific guides and just giving you guys information on how to best have a time at the park and what to do to prepare for it. But this video, like I said, is going to be more of a general view on all parks. So let's get into the beginning of your day. And the key is to always go for opening. Now, of course, this depends on the time of year and what day, of course, you're going. If you're going on a weekend, like a Saturday, Sunday, sometimes even a Friday, I definitely advise going for opening. Right now, it is Fright Fest season and haunt season at the parks, and it is notoriously crowded. Autumn time, summertime are definitely the two most crowded times of a park year. Spring and winter, depending on the park, usually isn't too bad, so you don't have to go crazy to get there for opening. But of course, depending on the park, you're going to want to get there at least half an hour before opening, just to make sure that you're able to get up to the entrance by opening. Some parks have different setups, and that can cause for really bad traffic jams, or just stupid people who don't know what they're doing, which winds up holding up the entire line. We, of course, like to be first to everything. I'm not saying you have to be first to everything, but if you want to be able to get there at a good time and get on a good amount of rides, I definitely recommend going for opening. Now, when you get into the park, you need to go in with a plan. And don't just stand around not going to a ride. Make sure you know what ride you're going to first before you even step through the gates. Now, my recommendation is always to go with the most popular ride, but sometimes at certain parks that can be tricky. Some parks have all of the rides get insane lines, so you really have to pick and choose what you want to go for first. My recommendation is to go for the ride that you want to ride most, that you know will have a long line later, so you just want to get it done now. I don't recommend going on a smaller ride that doesn't get many lines, because at that point you're kind of wasting your time. When you first get to a park, there is something my dad and I like to call the golden 90 minutes, where depending on the park, of course, you can have around an hour, sometimes an hour and a half of no lines, and you can just get on a whole bunch of stuff. Of course, this depends on how many people go to where you're going, so it doesn't always work out. But if you wind up making it work out right, you can get on a bunch of rides in just an hour. You gotta make sure you're moving at a good speed and go in with a plan. And my plan is to always go with the ride that has really bad capacity or really slow operations. What exactly does that mean? If the ride's line moves very slow, basically. So some rides have really tiny trains or really complicated restraint systems that wind up making them move a lot slower. I definitely go for those rides first, especially if you really want to go on them. Now, I can't really be too specific on what kind of ride since it's more of a general look, but I think you guys know what I mean when I say a more complicated ride or a ride that just gets a really long line. Now, once you get past this, that's when the day is kind of a little tricky to figure out. For starters, you're going to want to look at the crowd levels of the park that you're at. Of course, some parks are just always crowded, like Universal parks, sometimes even Cedar Point. So you can't really be too stingy about a crowded day or not crowded day. But typically, if you're there Monday through Thursday, it shouldn't be too crowded unless the weather is like really nice. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays tend to be much more crowded, especially Saturdays and Sundays. So if you're trying to get on a lot of rides, don't go on a Saturday or Sunday. But if you're already in the park and you don't know what to do, I definitely recommend getting food before everyone else does. Typically, people will go for food around 12, 1, sometimes even a little after that. So you want to beat sometimes the crazy food lines, because they can get really crazy depending on the park. And get your food as early as possible. At that point, you're going to want to examine whether or not you want to get a Fast Pass. Now, I know Fast Pass isn't affordable for everyone, or just isn't practical for everyone. I very rarely get Fast Passes at parks personally, but there's some parks where you really do just kind of need it, especially if you're only going for one day or a couple days, and you want to make sure you get the fullest experience out of that park I definitely do recommend a Fast Pass. Of course, if you have a season pass or a membership with a park, you do get certain perks, and for example, at Six Flags parks, you do get free skip the line passes depending on your tier of membership, which is always really helpful. And really, sometimes you just don't even need this. I mean, if you're there on a dead day and you can tell that there's no lines, take advantage of that. Go on rides as many times as you want. Go on every ride you can if you really want to. At that point, you can really do whatever you want. But if it is a crowded day, make sure you know which ride you're going to, figure out a sequence or rotation, as I like to call it, of what ride you're going to do, and pretty much just hope for the best. Now, during the middle of the day, it's obviously very iffy on what you can and cannot do, since typically most people will come into the park sometime between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, depending on the park. A lot of people like to come in midday because they don't like to come in for opening, which, big mistake on their part, but they're here now, and this is when the park is at its most crowded. Of course, this can be changed by stuff like Fright Fest, where it'll be most crowded at night, but typically it'll be most crowded at a park in the middle of a day. Now, this is when you want to decide, do I want to stay till closing or no? Typically, I say yes if you really feel like you have enough energy to last until closing of a park. Reason I say that is that typically the last hour or so of a park's operating time is pretty much no lines. But you have to be careful. Some parks close their ride lines early before park closing. That way, the line will be done at around park closing. I've seen this done at Cedar Point and a few other parks, so definitely be careful. If you're planning to go right in the ride's queue 5 minutes before closing, depending on the park, that's probably not a good idea. If I were you, I would pick a ride to go to and stay at that ride. If there's a ride near it, go ride that, but just be very careful during the final few minutes of park operating hours, because they can be very iffy about closing lines. I know at my home park, Six Flags Great Adventure, they tend to keep the line open until the minute the park closes, while other parks obviously close the line sometimes an hour early, which is pretty crazy. So once the park closes, you have to decide if you want to beeline it out of the park to not have to deal with traffic, or you just want to hang around. Most parks don't really have a hard closing time, so a lot of times there will be food and drink places open past park closing. Same with stuff like photo places, souvenir shops. So you definitely have things you can do after the park closes if you want to stick around. If you do wait long enough, you'll be able to breeze right out of the park. Or you can leave a little bit before closing, but then again, everyone kind of does that. So it's very difficult to figure out what to do there. But all in all, that's pretty much it for your day in an amusement park. Pretty sure I touched on basically everything that you want to go in with a plan, get there early, and make the most out of your day, really. Of course, this is very different, park by park. So if you would like to see me do this series in a more specific manner for particular parks, definitely let me know in the comment section. I always appreciate all of your feedback, and especially in this case, I really do need it. Of course, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and think my help was good, and I will see you guys in the next video.